Hello everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd get an update out here for the Kriel POIs and then do a build out a room and texture and color it in a POI that I'm currently working on. Um, but I wanted to show you some new stuff first, and keep in mind too, it's also daylight. Imagine that. So this is what the stuff looks like in broad sunlight. Of course, at night the texture lights kind of show through a lot more, and it gives it kind of a little bit of a different look. But in daytime, it's yeah, they work out pretty good. So over here, this is another new POI by RhodeKill, and this is coming along beautifully. It is a refinery. Um, yeah, pretty crazy. It's I love it. It looks very Krielish. It's got all the characteristics, some new features and things that I didn't even think about doing, like the spiky stuff up here. That's cool. This one's still under construction. It is coming to the point where it needs to get the interior and all that stuff done. But yeah, looking really good. The other POI that I showed you the other day is by author Escarly, and this one is also looking awesome. It's I guess he has another version that I don't have currently that is updated, and it has the rest of this built out in the back, um, and still getting tweaked and all that fun stuff. But yeah, very cool. And he's got another one. Um, Now this is meant. Now I can't spawn it properly because I'm in just regular survival. But when it's spawned in game, this big box on the bottom is in ground, so you don't really see that. You see what's on top. And this one is it's called the Nexus, and it's a teleport place. So under all this, there is a room that has some teleporters that'll be able to get you to teleport around different Kriel facilities. Um, I don't know. I've been asking about the technology on that, and it sounds like something I'm going to want to do is get some teleporters in some of these POIs as well. It'll offer some different game options, which is pretty cool. So on what I've been doing myself is I've almost got the body of this one finished up now. I was working heavily on this side of it and the top part of it. Now there's some more tweaks I want to do to the top yet. I need to build out like another gun emplacement or turret emplacement over on this side over here, and probably add a few more turrets to this in various places. But it's kind of like a big, it's a staging ground. I'll call it something like that. Um, and I got some of the interior block work worked out on it already too. Not all of it, but a fair amount of it. So the interior, once I get started on this, probably won't take a huge long time because I kind of did some of it already. Now what I've been really working on is this one here. I'm not fully done with the interior yet, but I did build out these bottom two floors of it now. Here, let me take a little. So, and I'm trying to make it kind of interesting, a little bit different for gameplay. The fact that this one does have a little bit of a secret. Of course, people knowing the video might know this, but most people probably won't. If you slip in below this base over here and you get into this bottom entrance, it allows you to kind of sneak through here, go up a floor, and put yourself into the hangar. Now by default, this hangar door on the back is locked, and I don't know how many, I gotta check out how many hit points those things have, but it gives you a little switch so you could open up the hangar door and then roll in a SV or HV, or your buddies can come flying in. And this is going to give you a little bit of a tactical advantage on the first room as well, because if you come in the main entrance, which would be up these staircases out over here, when you walk in, you're kind of at a nasty little spot to get shot up, and I figured there'd probably be bad guys around these areas here, as well as a couple sentry guns shooting at you or more in other areas. So if you just walk in the front entrance, it's going to put you at a real nasty spot, getting shot at a lot. But if you sneak through and know the other way, you could come in from over here and avoid these turrets, or even maybe hop up here and be able to destroy them easily from a weird angle they can't get you at, shoot the bad guys from a height advantage, and maybe take a little bit of cover over by the elevator. So that's the idea. So if you're tactical, investigate, and find another way in, you'll have an easier time with this POI, at least on the initial couple floors here. And that brings me to where I wanted to get busy with here, is the next floor on this. Now this floor has one elevator connection. It has 4 little rooms. Well, I wouldn't even call them rooms, balconies that go outside. And then it has a staircase which goes up to the next floor. This would be the next floor above that yet. This will more than likely be kind of 2 floors. It'll probably have another partial floor up in this section here, which will give this thing like literally just a lot of levels of stuff inside it to do. So it's a pretty big POI. I know there's bigger out there, but this one's it's decent. So I wanted to get busy with this and try to plot out this room and figure out how would I do it, how would I texture it, and this is kind of a bit of a tutorial too for those that are making Kriel POIs and stuff, on how I go about the interiors on these things. So first thing I usually do is whatever space I end up with, it's usually a blocky thing like what you see now. I try to find solutions and try to come up with like some angles and curves to try to make it flow better. Now sometimes you can edit some of these blocks on the outside, sometimes you can't, and a lot of times I'll blow away some blocks to see which ones I can manipulate, or which ones need to be there and which ones don't need to be there. And I usually end up starting out with like trying to get the walls going. So the easiest thing. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'm looking at this room thinking, well, it would look kind of neat if it had some kind of like angled something going across, maybe these sides, maybe round off a little bit in the front here. So I'm going to start with that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into one of the sets of angled blocks and try to figure out how loose can I keep these and have it look right. In other words, does it go all the way down to the floor? Like if I use this version of this block, it doesn't go quite to the floor, so it's kind of, you got these square edges here, and I'm trying to avoid that. So I'll pick the size up in this case, and then I'm going to build this up, kind of just going up over here, something like this. And yeah, I'm wasting a little bit of space here, but it's oh crap, I forgot to turn on symmetry. A lot of these interiors though, sometimes I don't like to have symmetry on, because that when you're dealing right at the center line, when you got that symmetry wall in front of you, it really obscures your view a lot. And I sometimes rather just manually put in 2 sets of blocks as opposed to use the symmetry in those situations. Okay, so that's first part here. Now I'm going to take a look at this wall here. So this wall in this area also has full blocks. So I'm thinking, well, can I cut into this wall in some way or another to add something more? So I'm going to attempt that. I don't know how this is going to come out quite yet, but I'm going to at least attempt it. So when I built this angle out here now, this is 22.5 degrees. I'd like to keep it at 22.5 here on the bottom too. I'm going to try to cut into it with some different angled blocks, but I'm going to be limited on my options here. Not too badly though. we'll just see how this comes out. So I can put in these two and still have a full wall on one side. But then after that, all bets are off because I can't put in another angled block that would not expose the outside like you see here. But say I really wanted that angle wall there, then I could think of what could I do to the outside of this to conceal that. And there's options for that as well. In this case, I think what I'm going to do is simply put in a little thin block here on the outside to cover that hole up. So then I can maintain that same angle. On the top here, I think that one's going to have to be a full block, but then we're going to go back down to one of these. Get this rotated right here. And should I go with one more? Yeah, how about that? That'll work. So that allows us to run, and to keep this angle going, could run something across here like that. I'll just fill that in for the moment. Ah, darn it, symmetry. Ah, crap. I'm going to turn on symmetry right after this, despite being in the way. It still does save time. It certainly saves time. So, yeah. Alright, so symmetry. Okay, so usually what I end up doing with these rooms is I start with the walls. Once I get the walls kind of squared away, then I usually end up blowing away the ceiling and recreating that with different blocks as well. Now I got to keep this area open over here, but I'd like to angle something over here. So now the Kriel often will go from an angle into a curve as well. So all these different curve blocks and things like that are totally on the table. In fact, I kind of like to split it up now and then, like have it do one thing and then go into something else. And I love this particular block, aka the spans block. You can make some neat looking stuff. And you got, and like I could have rotated this two different directions too, so I could have the curve there, I could have a curve on this side. In this case, I decided to go with this side because it's a little funkier, I think. Alright, so across the front here again. Now with POIs, I've typically been filling stuff in, so I'm not leaving like empty blocks inside the hull. I don't do that a lot with other ships either, or other creations. But sometimes I like to leave open block now, especially for placing projectors or LCD projectors inside them. Alright, so we've got this going on, but I'm kind of wanting to curve this a little bit if possible as well. Like kind of make a curve in on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to add another row here for now. Something like this. And then let's do something. Typically, I might want to just like put like angled blocks that go across here, but in this case, I'm going to try something different. And I'm going to go to the other angled set and add those, like a row of that to the sides as well. Something like this. And how about in here? We do the same. Now, so I can't edit this square block here. So maybe I'll try to add some kind of formation here. What would a couple of these do for me? Nah, it could work if I was willing to get rid of that inner row possibly and just replace that with a couple full blocks. Okay, now we're starting to get our funky shape and design here. Okay, so and there needs to be a ceiling in that area, and that's fine. So I got these doors inset on the inside of the base, and I think I'd be better served now at least to take these doors and put them on the outside. Like that. I think if I open that up, that side block there will conceal the doors opening beyond the edges. Same thing on the interior, so yeah, that's good. That gives me an extra block space on the inside, actually. I think it does. Yeah, right here. So that's actually on the outside. Alright. So, over across here, I guess on this side I put a bunch of these, but I'm going to take that out now because it's not funky enough. I think what I'm going to do is do an kind of alter it like every other row for a bit here. Try to come up with a formation that works. Like say I run 3 of this type with the edges that are a little thicker and 3 of the type that don't have that. Or, since it's Kriel, might actually be more fitting to go with a curve here. Like that. Just trying to get some definition to these walls here. Okay, so now that we got that part sort of done, I guess I'll leave these open. That'd be a good place to put items or deco or just open walkway space. On the back part of the room, we got down here, we got some little pits there. And these are full blocks here too. I wonder if I couldn't take away some of these blocks and just add a little weirdness here and drop the floor down to that area. Maybe there could be some machinery or something here. So let's see, I put in some of these and we'll just go straight down some of those. So now I got this little cutout here on both sides. That kind of comes right up to where this staircase is. So what can we do with the staircase? Do I want to make this any bit funky with some glass or something? Let's try it. That's where a lot of times these thin windows come in handy too. I really like the heavy windows with the fancy glass, I like to call them, but they don't work because in a lot of cases because of their width, because they are 2 blocks wide. So in this case, let's say we put a window like that and another just a square window over here. And that forms a wall that you can see through into the other room. Okay, like that. And it looks, angly, it looks pretty nice too because you're matching the same angle there. That's another thing you can't do with the fancy windows is do a 22.5 degree angle. In case of these windows, this is the one thing that's still broken with symmetry. This doesn't use the right glass part from one side to the other, so you got to manually fix it. Alright, so on this top row here, I'll create a formation here of something else again. Maybe some more of these. These tend to look pretty nice with Kriel. Maybe not the real thick one. that, and on the top, do I want the same thing? I want to switch it up into something else. I kind of want to switch it up. So let's try this. And since I used that piece, I probably should have the one that doesn't have the bevel on it here. Something in these corners here. You know, there's something this doesn't have any in it yet, and that is pipes and stuff. Would there be a good place to put in a pipe here? I don't know. I could. That window's right in the way now. Or do I scrap that window, put in something like this to round off that edge? Maybe do that on the inside here too. Yeah, that works. Okay. Alright, so ceiling. First fill in the areas that I'm not going to be able to do anything with. And get rid of the rest of the ceiling that I will be able to mess with. I think I can take that one edge further. Yeah, something like that. Alright. Start with that. So what can we do? Well, starting here, I think I'm going to try to match the same angle that's going up the wall there. But I keep in mind though, anything I put on top has to have a solid top on it so I can have a floor for the room above it. So that is the big thing. So as long as I pull that off, any block can work. Well, a lot of blocks can work. But if I get too, if I try to put this in there, then I got a hole in the floor, so I can't do that either. So that's where it gets tricky. So let's try something else. So we got a 45 there, and let's say I wanted to bring that and make this into a transition into a curve. And we'll have this curve fairly sprawling going right down the center of the room, probably all the way to about this point here for now. And I also like to get some flat space on the ceiling so I can mount lights and things. So I guess this will be kind of that part a little bit. Yeah, or is it going to be? Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so let's do this. We'll just have flat blocks there. And then on the other side here, let's kind of gently curve that back upward into the wall. Alright, we're starting to look a little funky. Perfect. So now we need floor in this area. And I think we'll just go pretty simple. A bunch of thin blocks going across here to fill that section in. Okay, so now I got these two little ridges over here, and I don't really like the top ridge. What could be put here to make this work right? Just investigating. Could try that. If I did that, then the bottom should change too. Could really go out of the box and try something like that. And we got the gaps here behind that. Or I grab this to fill that in. And maybe some of these guys, like little supports. And another flat block up top here. That kind of makes it work, I think. So in the back part of the room, see, I don't want this this same formation to go forever either. I kind of want it to change it up. That's why I stopped it about where it stopped at, so I can do something different over here. Okay, so we've got all that going on. Let's say at this point we'll just fill this in, and we'll say that this is a big beam that goes across here, and on the other side we can do some different patterns. So let's get back into some curves and follow that same look, I guess, but switch it up. So we got 4 blocks from here to there. I was hoping to have 5, but that's alright. You know we can have 5. I'm going to take this back another row and fill that in there instead. Okay, the reason for 5 is so I could do a pattern, kind of a stripe pattern right across where I got these rows and then alternative rows at a little bit different blocks. And then let's put in this one. And then thin blocks. There. Okay, so coming up into the elevator here, looks like this block is editable here. What do I want to? I fear if I put in another curve right here, I'm trying to overdo it. Actually, we got a curve here, we got a curve there, now a curve over here. And it just feels like I'm pushing it too much. So maybe I'll look for something else over here. Could do something like this. Just a slight angle. I think that would work. Alright. So there we go. There's kind of the walls of the room laid out. So let's start in on the next part of it and getting the stuff textured. Now, I might make some changes yet too. There are some elements I like that. I don't know if I like this yet or not, but it'll look a lot different once it's textured as well. So now I got to figure out where I'm at with my texture scheme here. Now, if you'll take a look at the room below it, what I've been doing is kind of this. I start with a like a pattern where I got a row of this texture and color and then a row of this texture and color, and then it kind of repeats. And after I do that to a room, then I'll go through and start replacing a lot of those with other textures and make some more adjustments and details and things like that until it looks decent enough. So I'm gonna try the same concept here. So I'm gonna go with this color here and this particular this floor texture here. I'm just kind of gonna go over the bottom very generically and quickly right now, and texture a bunch of this, maybe all the way around. Keep in mind, a lot of this will change before it's done, but okay. So we got that row, and let's. Oh man, I don't even have block up here. Okay, let's do that up here as well. There's not a lot of space there, is there? So the other row, been using this purple, and I go over here and been using this particular texture. And then when I go through this, I try to align it so they're all, so the direction of this particular texture is all facing one direction. Now it's impossible to do on a lot of blocks. Like these blocks here, you can't align it properly, so you just don't bother. In the end, this is such a dark thing that you don't see the misalignment so much on these textures because of the color, because it's just dark. So that is one nice thing about it. I'm going to leave these open for a different texture. I'll have to do more with this hallway later here. But then you got to, oh, that's a staircase right here. You got to watch that too. So I'm going to have to use a different texture here regardless of what I feel it should be. How about that? That looks alright. Okay. Let's get back over to some more of this. Finish up this area. Oh, I didn't put these in right. Oh, one of them was right. How about some of that here too? Alright, so this block here, not cool. I gotta rotate it differently. Really hard to tell too, especially with this concrete texture. I have no idea which way it needs to be rotated, so it's kind of like I'll place it, I'll see if I can texture this edge and not this part and this part separately. If it works, then I got it right. If it doesn't work, then I rotate it again. Oh, and it's still not right, because now when I texture the bottom, it textures this whole surface, so I need to alter that rotation again. And I'm guessing because you can't actually see the creases on this very well. That's not right. There is one rotation that will work and the rest won't. So basically, until I get it right, and there it is. So now we've got all that as a separate texturable spot in which we could have fun with this. Could try some interesting patterns like that, or let's get some lights in here too. You don't have much in texture lights with concrete at all. There's this, and then there's this. So very little. Here, I don't really like the look of that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap this out with a steel block to give me access to a different set of textures, in which I can make something I think that would look a little better there. And this one's pretty faint, and I think it blends well with the Kriel, so maybe I'll put that there instead. Now on these back blocks here, I think these are steel already. So what I'm going to do is I want you to see a texture light through that. So I'll texture in the back of that like that, and then the front will go to something else. There's not much that really fits here well, but this sort of lines up. And how about here we also throw in, nah, it's too close. This texture I use occasionally too in here. It sort of blends well. I don't particularly like the white lines in there, but it's not too overpowering. So over here though, I was thinking maybe run some of that ceramic tile there. It doesn't look so much like ceramic tile when it's colored like this. If it were red or its default color, it would really stick out, but I think this way it works out all right. Okay, now another thing, these blocks here, I like to do something, a great spot to add some little texture lights up here, but again, let me see what I can do with this one. So it kind of makes that, and I don't think that necessarily looks good. So here, I'm going to blow these three out and replace those with steel as well. And I gotta make sure I got it lined up right, so the top one is the one that has a different texture on it. I think that's correct there. No, it's not. Hard to tell sometimes. I'm looking for that split, so we can obviously tell that doesn't line up with the top part. Real important on this stuff, on getting your detail in. So now that I converted this to steel, I do know that this texture here, if rotated that way, would kind of show up on one half of it. Another option is I could just do that as well. But I've been trying to keep the texture lights a little bit tamer, I guess. So I'm going to try this for now. If we don't like it, I can change it. And there's not much I'm going to be able to do with the sides here, so I'll fill that in. In the front, this is nice too, because now we can pop in some other kind of texture here, or a couple different textures. Maybe like that. Okay, so the ceiling. Do I want any more of this in the room? Yeah, maybe. And see how many do we got? One. So we went in one there, one there. Just try to make a little formation again. I do a lot of this formation stuff, trying to make things, I don't know, more interesting to look at, try to mix up the textures, things like that. But you do run into the problem a lot where there's just not that many options. Could try to put, nah, I don't want, well, if it was done like that in the center, and then over here, put in some standard wall stuff. should line up to that row. So I'm just trying to fill it in now. See if I can come up with any kind of formation. These are the parts that get a little tricky though. It's just trying to find that one texture or anything that can work reasonably well with some of these areas. And this looks like a great place for another texture light and probably some more of this stuff. Maybe a little bit more of this over here. Something in the center. How about a vent? Too many vents. I usually don't like to put too many of one thing next to each other. I usually try to kind of like offset that, so I won't put two vents like this. One or the other would be a vent. So in this case, I'm thinking it might look better if the top was something else. Maybe I'll put in one of those here. I don't really know. All right. So the very top. Needs to be something. In this case right now, I'm just going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to texture the whole block the same. What do I put here? How about just something simple right now? Like that. Okay, so flooring. Okay, walk path. Basically, kind of sucks that it's the same as the walls. So you know what? I'm gonna bring out the walk path to there, and I'm gonna try to make this work so it gets to the staircase on both sides and then across the room. And then what I've been doing is I've been going to just a standard gray a lot and using this texture for some of the floor. Oops, I forgot to put in connecting walkways here. Let's go across the room like that with it. Oh yes, this needs to be a walkway too. Alright, a couple more filler things here. I guess that works as good as anything. Vent there since that's still a steel block. Get a little bit of that. Okay, so we're kind of getting there. So here, how about kind of a beam that goes across like that. I got the last part of this room to do. Let's go simple for now. Anything that works here at all? Not really. Huh, maybe that. Yeah, let's try that. It's a little bit different. And just to put something up here for now. Oh, that's the bottom of the steps. Okay. Alright, so we can obviously see some Kriel space here. Kriel space. It's amazing how the word Kriel works as an adjective on so many different cases. Love it. I'll just generically fill that in for now. Okay, so now we've done most of this. I can't texture these the same because they're supporting different textures on the floor below. So fortunately, these things here got to be a metal texture that doesn't fit with the other texture. But can anything work and not look too out of place? Hard to say. I don't know. Maybe that for now. Okay, so usually when I get to that, what I've been doing is all fixtures in Kriel. I've been also painting with this color. So this goes for like deco blocks, console displays, doors, you name it. All of it pretty much gets colored that. Windows. Okay, so now we have our room. So the next part about what I usually end up doing here, now I might extend this elevator out too and put a roof on it too. That's something that I think might be handy. Next part is I usually like to pop in a couple lights and take a look at what this actually is going to start to look like at night. So then I want to figure out where would be a good spot to add lights and where can I add lights on flat surface. Lights I've typically been using for Kriel are light 5 over here. Now I have used others as well. I guess it depends on the situation, but this is my default light. So let's say we pop one here. And I'm going to put in a generic light value right now. We'll tweak these later, but usually I set it to this color as standard. Intensity of 2. I'm going to just jump the range up to 20, and we're going to increase the spotlight angle to about 130. So that is default. Now, what happens when you do this in symmetry is the light on the other side doesn't take any of the values you just put into this light. So you can either go through there and manually do it, or a lot of times I'll bring out the multi-tool, zap that, which does not remove it in symmetry, and then add it again. By doing this, it remembers the settings that you had on your previous light, so now they're both the same. It's just a little bit quicker, I think. I'm going to try to get a couple more lights over here for now, and we'll do the same thing there. Also lights too, I've been coloring in the exact same color, this gray blue color. Alright, So now let's just take a look here at what this looks like. Symmetry off and at night. Night's really important too. Let me turn off this. Okay, so I can say now that we're kind of dark. So what I'm looking to do now is we've got 4 spotlights in the room. So what I would like to do to accent all of this is to add in one more light somewhere. We'll just put a light here for now. And I want to change the values of this light to not be a spotlight. And then I usually take the intensity down. Now, spotlight angle no longer matters because it's not a spotlight. I'll keep the range at 20, same color. Now, what that does is adds in a little bit of like an ambient light, so you can see the it kind of illuminates the area some. Now, a feature that I think would be really outstanding to have in this game, and it would work much like the oxygen currently. Like when you fill an oxygen area, it obviously does a process to check all the blocks that are, inside that area and sealed. If there was an option to add an ambient light, I think that would be really, really cool. Because the problem is a lot of times I would like to set up like a light scheme. So you have an ambient light, and then you have your spotlights over that, which accent areas make some things brighter or darker. It gives you a nice lighting effect. So I've been cheating. Rather than ambient light, I put in a non-spotlight sometimes in certain rooms, certain places to accomplish that in one way or another. But it forces me to use another light when really all I really want to do is just make it so it's not pitch black inside and be able to pick what ambient light color I want. Now, if it did actually have ambient lights, it'd be easier to do like industrial areas or things like that. You could kind of get that smoky atmosphere, I guess, possibly. Speaking of other features that I think would be really awesome to see in the game at some point in time, not a priority, some other things, like we have LCD projectors now, and they're really cool, and I've been seeing some authors do some amazing things with them. But it would be cool if on the same idea of that, if you had a different option, and that would be something like a LCD projector, but if it was an emitter. And what an emitter could do, in fact, you could just have an emitter and then give it a bunch of different options. You could have it do effects such as like sparks, fire, smoke, steam, very common in other game design or game engines and things like that. So you could put it like emitter, and you could even leave the projection part of it, so you could have like an emitter project a particle effect which would make smoke come down from a vent, or fire or sparks or something like that. I think that would be a really, really cool thing. Also, you could add audio. You could have sound, pipes, making steam, or weird cranks, or just all kinds of different sound effects too, that you could have with an emitter. And you could set maybe a range. So say I put an emitter on the wall over here, and I said you have a range of 5, so when you get in this area here within 5 blocks of that emitter, you hear a sound, whatever you pick. Could be a machinery noise or anything. Those would be some really, really neat options to really expand what a person could do in the game. I don't think would be terribly hard to do either, because the infrastructure of everything is already there. Just thought I'd bring that up because there are a couple thoughts I was thinking on what I would like to do with, what could enhance all this even more. Okay, so we're at this point right now on the room. It's plain. It doesn't have that luster. And what I'm looking at now is the plainness, I guess. It doesn't look bad, but it could use more. To start with, I'd like to make these doors a little bit more visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the closest light to that, and I'm going to try upping the spotlight angle some. Let's say we take it up to 145, which is pretty broad. So now that is casting more light on this particular door over here. Do the same with the one on the other side. Like that. Now these lights, or these doors over here are pretty dark yet. Now part of the reason why it's looking so plain is because there's not much going on with the wall textures yet. There's not a lot of differences. Now I like these texture lights here, but there's only one over here on this side of the place, and I think that should probably change. So opportunities. I'm going to erase that one there. I'm going to put in the same block, but in steel. Turn on the light here a minute. Put one of those there and one of those there. I only did this simply because I wanted to change the texture again. And then here we could maybe do one of these. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more texture lights there. I don't like to have too many texture lights in one area, but I like to have an even spread of them around. Like some here, a couple over there. But if you go crazy with it, then you can really kind of have a damaging effect, I think. Now the ceiling, there's not much going on here in this ceiling either. So let's replace a couple blocks here. How about we start there and there, like one back from the edges. And I will replace a couple of these also with steel. And then let's go for this subtle one, because it stays mostly black, which is great. So put in some of that now. Okay, so we're getting a little bit more spiffy there. Now I'll probably have a separate light in this area once the stairway's done, and a little bit more there. So there should be some more light there. But in the rest of the room, now let's say I'm content right now with the lights that I have in place and my texture lights. Next part is trying to get some more detail into here by use of other means, and that could be decals, consoles, deco items, a lot of different stuff. So let's start out with a couple consoles. As I really like how they light up at night and everything. So say I take one of these, we'll flip it upside down, and maybe across the front here we'll drop a couple of those there, color those again, and this. Okay, so now we got a little bit more to look at. The other side of the room is probably going to need the same thing, but here's something else. At this point, let's investigate textures, or I'm sorry, decals. And that's why I got the old tool texture tool out yet. I could do it with the other tool, but it's just I leave this one set now to decals, so it's just, I don't know, quick, I guess. Whoops. So what I'm doing right now is just trying to figure out like a little pattern I could do here with some decals, just trying to give it, you know, again, more to look at. And I typically don't do decals in symmetry because it screws up really badly. So it's probably quicker just doing it without symmetry on. These actually don't, these lines here actually don't screw up. It's these corners that do. They're always backwards on one side. Since there's so many corners. In fact, we'll just keep filling those in. Let's do something similar in the center area. Oops. Really hate having these in there. But if I want those texture lights on the floor below, I gotta suffer and not be able to match up the texture on the floor above. Alright. Well, I think you got the general idea on how I've been doing these Kriel rooms. Now, what's left on this room, I'll still keep on picking away at textures, maybe add in a vent or a thing or something or whatnot. Another thing I want to build out is I want the elevator to go another block higher with a roof on it. So those are a couple things that are left to do in here. Possibly a couple more decals too. Once in a while, I've been just taking this dash and just putting those out there. Again, you know, some people are like, oh, what does that do? And it's like, well, it's something more to look at. And my objective is to try to make it more detailed one way or another with whatever I can use as a tool to make that happen. And with, you know, with the options I've got, you know, adding some decals doesn't cost anything, pretty quick and simple to do, and you got little blobs of white now in a dark space that gives you a bit more to see. And that's basically all there is to it. And of course, filling in the room with, you know, things, content, stuff like that. Right now, I've been leaving a lot of these rooms pretty much open because Revenant, who is actually working on getting these set up for being a POI and the spawners and all the other stuff, it gives him some space to put in stuff. So I'm trying not to clutter it up with too much stuff, you know. There you go. But anyway, that is the process on how I've been doing like interior areas with Kriel. Of course, getting creative and trying different block combinations and different things is, you know, yeah, a lot of different stuff can work. And I keep on experimenting myself when I'm building these rooms out, keep on trying to tweak them out and make them look better and better. Like the floor below, now this one was a bigger space, this took a while, but kind of see how it came out and what it looks like at night. And I don't know if I got the lighting finalized in here yet or not. The lighting does change because all these POIs too, with all the interior lights, what I'm doing is I'm putting them on sensors or motion sensors. So all these lights in this room will not be on unless you're in this room area. And that helps with light bleed through going into nearby rooms as well as performance. So it's pretty quick and easy to add a motion sensor to an area. So I do that with everything, honestly. Anything I build has motion sensors for lights. So highly recommend that too with the POIs. But yeah, and there we go. Let me close this back door up again. And you kind of see how this is coming out. And after this, maybe I might, on my own time here, I'll try to get up to the next floor up and get those stairways done. And at that point in time, this POI is pretty much complete. And of course, a lot more detail and tweaking and things like that all over the place until it looks good enough. This is starting to look pretty good, this area. now, so I'm okay with that. It could still have more though. You could still add more detail to it. All right. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this, you know, if you plan on building any like Kriel stuff, what I just showed you here works well for bases because of the use of concrete textures, and I'm using quite a few of them now. But with CVs, SVs, HVs, you don't get the concrete textures available. So that's when you look at the Kriel palettes, you'll see this big range of these purples over here. And actually, this is like the fourth one in the set. This is darker, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter yet. Because I can't do the same textures, and I use an awful lot more steel texture in CVs and SVs and all that fun stuff, I've been doing color gradients on them. So I'll do like a row in this shade, and then a row in this shade, and then a row in this shade. And it depends how big the area is. Maybe you can go up to the fourth shade. Because you just, yeah, it's a texture thing again. And that's, you know, I know one of the features the devs were looking into is to, and I don't know if they're actually looking into this right now. It's probably not the biggest priority, but it would be certainly nice for builders at least. And that is to be able to select like your own texture palette. You know, if I had the choice of even this many textures, or you know, 2 pages of textures like you currently have with each type of block, but could pick and choose what textures I'm going to use from all of them, which would be the wood blocks, the concrete blocks, the xeno blocks. Like these guys here can be used on POIs as well, and I think they can be used across the board now. But yeah, if you take a look at one of these and then you go to texture it, you see all these different textures. A couple duplicates, but you know, like this texture here could come in really handy, or this texture over here. Some of these, this one's really cool too. And then you got all your gooey stuff over here. That's kind of interesting. Some of these are just really exotic. Like look at this. I mean, I haven't really thought of anything to do with this yet, but I'd like to use it sometime just to say I used it. Yeah, well, you get the idea. This is a really cool one too. Could very much fit into things. But here's a side effect to using this specific, the xenoblocks that I have right now. Like if I wanted to put in one of these textures here, which I would probably use quite often, the problem is if any other parts of that block are exposed to other walls, you only got these textures to pick from. If that works for you, great, but most of the time it doesn't. Like if I put one of these, say I replaced one of those and used some of this texture here, then the floor above it, well, in this case it would have been hidden right there, but it would have to be a texture of that too, which doesn't have any of the base textures I need for floors in it. So it kind of, I'm always having a mess with that and screw around and try to figure out, you know, and that's why I haven't used many of the xenoblocks yet, because I keep on running into problems with that. It's like I want to texture just this one text, this side of the block in this, but the other sides I want in floor tile or my walls or other textures, and it doesn't work out. And then if you take the total combination of different textures, so you got container extensions which have their own unique textures, you have wood textures which have their own unique ones, concretes, steel, and then xeno. And all of them are kind of like, some of them have some that repeat, some don't. Well, I think all of them have some kind of repeating, or some that are shared across different texture palettes. But I mean, to be able to unify those and to just put them in a package and say, hey, you can only use, 20 total textures or whatever that number might be, but you can pick which ones you want to use. That would be really cool. And then I could establish just like a Kriel texture palette, and it's got everything there and more options than what you currently have to build and detail these things. I think that would be a really awesome thing. But again, it's I'd rather see the game get done in Endgame and more of that. It's more important than this. But, you know, all these little things that I brought up, I think could enhance the game, especially visually. None of this is really about gameplay, but it's just making things look better and better. And this is a voxel game, and we're doing things that, well, I don't think any other voxel games are doing. So, pretty happy about that already. And just to keep on pushing that, as in, you know, that, yeah, this is quite a creation engine in a way. It's got this big, you know, galactic survival game on top of that, but it's got this going on too. And this is where, you know, if you get into the building aspect of this game, you can find yourself putting a bazillion hours into this game, and well worth the money on what you paid for it. If it didn't have the building, you know, I might have played it for a week or two and then moved on, you know, but it's got the building, it's got that creativity, and that is what sells a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people. The ones that stick around and keep on building stuff for it, for sure. Anyway, that is all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that helped a little bit in, especially for those authors that are building Kriel stuff on, you know, the general way I go about each area and what I try to do in my process until the room gets fully fleshed out. And I'll probably, like I said, do another detail round on this room. But right now, I think it's good enough to move on to the next room. But then I call that last process final detail. It's where I look at everything again, maybe swap out a few textures, add some more detail things, and stuff like that. Maybe tweak out the lighting one more round, adjust some of the light radius values, or in this case, it's not radius. They call it spotlight angle, but and that's true. But it is kind of a radius thing, because the bigger you make this, the more it makes your light bigger. All right. Well, y'all have a good day. See you later.